Yo, howdy everybody, Doodle here, and we did it! We reached December. The sun is setting earlier, lights are decorating the trees, and it is officially my favorite time of the year. And what a year it has been for Nintendo. I feel that there weren't especially high expectations for 2023 as a whole. It was mostly Tears of the Kingdom that kept excitement afloat. But now so much has happened, and I really feel like we're creeping into a new era of Nintendo. They've really been shaking things up and seemingly beginning to break some of their old habits. And so that's the goal of this video. I want to go through what exactly happened, the highs, the lows, and give my takes. So let's talk about it. So let's go all the way back to January with Fire Emblem Engage being released first thing this year. It had really big shoes to fill after the success of Three Houses, and I feel like it ultimately came to a bit of a mixed reception. The classic fans seemed to really enjoy the return to form for the gameplay, but those who had loved the series for the social aspect weren't really always finding it to hit the way that the previous game had. Overall, while it might not have been the biggest hit, Fire Emblem Engage was a nice start to the year. We then make our way into February with our first Nintendo Direct. This is where we kind of begin to have some expectations building up. I mean, we're looking at the rest of this year, and at this moment, there's not really a whole lot going on. First and foremost for me, we finally got to see an actual trailer for Pikmin 4, and my god, it was glorious. It had been like a decade that that game had been teased, and I think me and many others were really afraid that it was just never gonna happen. Even though it was just a small little teaser, it was enough to just be so glorious and get all the Pikmin fans super excited, including myself. We then had the Splatoon 3 expansion pass get talked about, with its Wave 1 Inkopolis reskin for the main city. I imagine that this was really cool for those who loved the original game, and I just have not played it, so it was just nice to see. Out of nowhere, we got a Metroid Prime remaster, and not only did this look super good and have an awesome trailer, but it dropped the exact same day, which was so crazy and out of the nowhere. They really went all in on revamping the original graphics, the models, the textures. It was so cool to see such a high quality game get shadow dropped out of nowhere. And then we finally finish off the Direct with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom trailer. We got to get a hint about the fact that there was going to be sky islands, seeing some cave-like environments in a nice ominous tone. I think for a lot of people, this really built up their hype. And not too long after, we got the Kirby's Return to DreamLand Deluxe release. This game looked nice, but it was mostly a big hit for Kirby fans. It was not the big epic Kirby adventure we had seen with Forgotten Land, but hey, taking an oldish game, making it more accessible, that's never a problem for me. February continued to be a really big month for Nintendo as we saw the opening of Super Mario World at Universal Studios in Hollywood. The partnership between Universal and Nintendo was announced as early as 2015, and yet so many years later, it wouldn't be until this past February that it would actually open. And, fun fact, on my birthday. And oh man, the Toad Cafe also looks so cozy. They have this cute themed food too. I think a really big goal for me in 2024 is to actually make it out to that park and get to experience it myself. Finishing up February, we had the first Pokémon Presents of the year. And they went through a variety of small announcements, but I think the biggest thing I took away from it was that we got the tiniest look at Pokémon Concierge, an animation team up with Netflix that looks so great. It's a nice fully animated series in a stop motion style. I made a whole video about it if you want to get a full taste of my hype, but let's just say that I will be watching this as soon as it comes out. For me, the only other big announcement for this Presents was the Pokemon DLC for Scarlet and Violet. And it was kind of hilarious. They mostly used a bunch of live action footage, and I imagine it's because the DLC was still in early development, but it was hard for it to not just feel like they didn't have a lot of faith in the base game and knew that it didn't look super great, so it felt like they were kind of cheating us with some live action footage. Jumping into March, we got another round of the Booster Course Pass for Mario Kart 8. Really, all you need to know about this one is that the Wii DK Summit came back, which was rad, and then the mother of all stages, probably my favorite of what would be all the Booster Course Pass releases, was this beautiful Yoshi Island stage. Oh, they killed it with this one. And out of nowhere, this was the first time that they announced that they were adding characters in with this DLC, with Birdo, and they gave her a bunch of fun color palette swaps, which was really cool. March also saw the Nintendo eShop closures for the Wii U and 3DS. And it's always pretty sad to see shops closing, especially when so much content could be potentially lost. While this is the way that digital eShops have been going, it's still really sad to see old digital content potentially get lost from the Wii U and 3DS era. More than anything, it makes me really nervous for the eventual Switch eShop closures, as with that console, I bought most everything digitally. For April, we had another out-of-the-box medium for Nintendo, the Super Mario movie. Excitement for this movie had been a bit of a roller coaster. Expectations were maybe a little low when we learned that it was going to be Illumination making it, and there were fears that it was going to kind of hollow out the franchise and give it a lot of excessive kid jokes or pop culture references. It might have over-relied on references and lacked a meaningful plot, but the visuals were nice and it had enough good moments that it was still fun to see. I also had a blast going with my friends and we made a whole night out of it, got dinner, got a bunch of snacks. It was pretty great. And before we knew it, we actually hit May, and Zelda's Tears of the Kingdom was released. Now, of course, a Zelda launch is a huge momentous event, and it feels especially rare these days since we have had less handheld Zelda games. And then you add in the fact that Breath of the Wild was also a huge success, and potentially one of the reasons the Switch ended up being such a big hit. It seems like overall it was well received. It got great sales. People mostly seemed to love it. I was always a bit nervous about this sequel. The initial spooky trailer was fun, but with each teaser, it felt more and more that they had decided to focus on aspects of this game that were not gonna quite connect for me. Ultimately, it might not have been a hit for me, sadly, but I'm really excited that a lot of people got to enjoy it and have a great time with it. And I really didn't get to be sad for too long because around the corner was June, and with it, the Pikmin 4 release. I'm somebody who played the original Pikmin back in the day on my GameCube as a kid, and it's always been one of my favorite Nintendo series. It has been such an emotional roller coaster. I get sort of emotional just thinking about it. There were times where I really was scared that Pikmin was just a dead Nintendo series, and we were never gonna get another game again. And then, even if we got another game, were they gonna try to completely revamp it into something like Hey Pikmin, or change up the series so much for casual audiences that it really didn't resemble what the original was all about? But no, oh my god, we actually got a huge, beautiful, stellar Pikmin game. And I don't want to dive too much into my thoughts as I'm definitely going to give it a full review, but let's just say that it was the highlight of my year, and I'm just so happy that I actually got to play a brand new Pikmin 4 experience. Oh, it just makes me so happy. And that gets us to about the halfway point in the year, and with it, a June Nintendo Direct. By this point, we really didn't have any idea what was on the horizon. No games were really announced, and this was the Direct to really lay out the future for the rest of the year. And Nintendo came in swinging with a Super Mario RPG announcement from just out of nowhere. I think a lot of people had made peace with just hoping that it would eventually get on the Nintendo Online catalog, but no, they were not just gonna release this game, they were gonna completely remaster this game, and they just killed it. It looked so good. It was such a fun teaser. We also got a teaser for Peach's Showtime, which looks really charming, and it's super exciting for Peach to get her own game. Luigi's Mansion 2 also got a trailer, and it's getting brought to the Switch library. WarioWare Move It got announced, which was exciting since we haven't seen a Smooth Moves-esque WarioWare since the Wii. And then the big one for this Direct was, of course, Super Mario Bros. Wonder. If you had told me that everyone would be hyped for a classic 2D platform Mario game, I really would have never believed it. And funnily enough, at the time, I still wasn't totally sold based just off of this trailer. Sure, it looked nice, but I wasn't totally confident that they'd be able to really revitalize the Mario formula to make something that felt fresh. That gets us into August. And with it, Nintendo announces that Charles Martinet is stepping down. It's crazy getting to see such a huge baton pass of legacy, and it's especially crazy since it's the first time for Mario. Truly nothing but big love to Charles for all he's ever done over the decades. He was the voice of Mario for so many people's childhoods. I mean, the man's a part of history. But I also really want to give big props to the new voice actor, Kevin Afghani. We first got to hear him in Super Mario Wonder, and I think he did a really great job. Honestly, I'm just really happy it wasn't Chris Pratt. And then, September rolls around, and with it, another Nintendo Direct. If the June Direct was full of teasers for fun things we would eventually see, the September Direct is where we really got to flesh out all these announced games and actually see what they look like. We got a deeper dive into Splatoon's Side Order DLC with the Part 2, which has a super cool look, almost a Portal vibe with these sci-fi white rooms and robotic elements, kind of like a test lab. We got a super out of nowhere cool drop for F-Zero 99, the first F-Zero content we've had since like 2004, and it's super exciting to see that series get some love outside of Smash Bros. We really randomly have a Mario vs. Donkey Kong game happening. It has me wondering where the heck an actual in-depth Donkey Kong game has been. We have not had any Donkey Kong since Tropical Freeze on the Wii U, and I'm really surprised that DK hasn't gotten any love on the Switch. And then, the big slamming announcement for this Direct was Paper Freakin' Mario 1000 Year Door. Man oh man, my jaw was on the floor. I'm like all the other kids from the GameCube era that really love this game and consider it to be one of my favorite Nintendo franchises. And seeing them bring it back, spruce it up with crispy graphics, it just makes my heart sing. The music alone was enough to make me emotional. With how the Paper Mario series has been going, I really wasn't sure that Paper Mario 1000 Year Door would ever see the light of day again. And even if they did try to do it, I was worried they would cut things out, or try to make it closer to the way Paper Mario exists now. But no, it has all the fun NPC characters with cool outfits and their personalities, and it stayed very close to the original look of the game. Honestly, I'm just nothing but excited for it. But to bring my hype back down to earth, October saw the release of Detective Pikachu. There really isn't much to say except, wow, this game is not looking so hot. It feels weird that after Mario's movie was so successful, Nintendo clearly had planned out a bunch of amazing, detailed releases for the Mario franchise to kind of keep that hype rolling and to bank off of the new audience that had saw the film. And yet, the Detective Pikachu film was definitely a success back when it came out. It got almost $500 million at the box office. If so many people love that film, it feels like this would have been a perfect way to further push the series. But you know, we'll talk about the disappointment of Pokémon these days another day. Thankfully, October had another release, Super Mario Wonder. While at first I wasn't totally on board with Mario Wonder's advertising, the hype when it came out ended up being too much. I literally had multiple friends messaging me about how awesome the game was and that I have to give it a try. And so, I did. They totally revamped Mario's visual style, creating such fresh, fun environments to explore, and tons of interesting new enemies. It was just so fun. While it wasn't perfect, this ended up being my most unexpected highlight this year from Nintendo. Jumping into November, we had WarioWare Move It release. While I think this game will get lost in all the amazing things coming out this year, this was another unexpected highlight for me. No, it wasn't a crazy deep experience, but it was one of the first games on the Switch that I truly felt took advantage of the Joy-Cons and the tech they hold inside. So few games get to have fun motion controls these days, and so I'm really happy that WarioWare Movie got to do it and do it well. And then with November, we got the Mario Kart DLC finale. Even if the last wave of Mario Kart didn't have the crazy quality hitters that some of the others had, it was both a relief and a tearful goodbye to see Mario Kart finally wrap up. The DLC ended up being a great value, especially since they ended up adding in more characters to play with and some courses that we had never seen before. While a good amount of the courses were less refined than the original Mario Kart 8 Deluxe courses, it was also a nice send-off for the Mario Kart Tour app, which is no longer getting new content. November also saw the release of Super Mario RPG, a big unexpected hit for me this year. This is a game that I had high expectations going into. While I hadn't played it before, I know it's deeply beloved and considered the inspiration for so many of my favorite Mario RPGs. And yet, even with that high bar, the game has exceeded my expectations. I'm nearly done with it, and I felt so much joy learning about these characters, seeing these beautiful cinematics, the amazing music, these cool trio moves. Between this and Metroid Prime, and eventually 1000 Year Door, I have high hopes that we could see some really stellar remakes of older games coming soon. I know it might be too much to ask for, but a clay-style remake of Earthbound would just rock my universe. And as of recording this video, that's actually all that's come out. But let's also take a look at what's coming out at the end of December here. December 14th marks the Pokémon DLC Part 2 release for Scarlet and Violet. Teal Mask came out earlier this year but was so half-baked, I didn't even play it. I really did not like the design of the sibling characters, and I just wasn't convinced it was going to be a good experience. The Indigo Disc is the second part that's coming out soon, and I feel like this one might have a little bit more potential. I like that they're kind of having a Pokemon Parks feel with it, and maybe a little bit of Pokemon Coliseum too with the idea of like a battle tower or something. I'll probably aim to give it a sincere try. And while the Pokemon games might not be hitting for me, Pokemon Concierge is looking to revive some of my excitement in the franchise, and that comes out December 28th. The style looks fantastic, the Pokemon themselves look especially well designed for the stop motion style, and I'm deeply excited to get a nice slice of life Pokemon animated series. I definitely look forward to reviewing that once it comes out. It's too much to wish for, but it'd be so fun to see the Pokemon games take this as inspiration and try to push the visual development for these games. But, you know, I'm not gonna get my hopes up. Wow, and that about does it. It's been a crazy jam-packed year for Nintendo. To me, it feels like the sunset year for the Switch, a console that has been going since 2017. While we have some small peeks into the future, there isn't very much on the horizon right now. Rumors have been swirling that a successor for the Switch is getting revealed early this upcoming year, and I am beyond excited, ready, and stoked. What were your highlights for Nintendo this year? Did any games catch you by surprise? Are you refreshing the internet every minute like I am to see if there's any Switch 2 news? Let me know down in the comments, and consider subscribing, as I plan to be doing more in-depth reviews of some games I love later this month. Thanks everybody, happy holidays, I'll see you around, and yeah, Doodle out.